All right, we are live.
All right. Hey, everybody. This is long overdue. I put that on Twitter. I was just posting earlier just to let people know we were going to be online. But I want to say I haven't done one of these for Fallen Earth in easily like 3 years, I think. We might have done something. Um, it was definitely before Classic, I think. We might have done something where we talked a little bit about Classic and why we put that back online. But how's everybody doing today? All right. So I'm going to introduce Tim. Tim's one of our lead producers at Little Orbit, and so he's helping manage the stream and all the craziness that's involved. That allows me to kind of read the chat, and we've got some questions from everybody. Thank you, everybody who either got on the Steam forums or our forums or Twitter or Facebook or Discord and asked questions. We've got a big list of them here, so we'll hope to get to as many as we can. I've got them up here in another screen, so I'm going to park those right there. We'll come back to those. Um, let me. There we go. Cool. Everybody. I'm going to read chat as we go. So let's start with kind of where are we at? One of the biggest questions. I'm going to butcher some of these names, but Emery Ram has asked, "How's the game development progressing?" There's a couple other people here asking about, how's game development going. So I want to acknowledge that question. We'll jump into that one because I think we have quite a bit to share there. We've been quiet. We've I think everybody knows we've just kept Fallen Earth Classic online to kind of give people something to do. It was widely requested by the community, so we just put that back online for you guys. But in the background, I would say since June, we have been in full development, rewriting um, the game. We're doing it in stages, and so the first stage, just to kind of give everybody, thanks, Evan Prime, just to give everybody kind of a breakdown of how this works is we chose to go after the back end. And so the back end engine, I'm going to refer to them differently because there's a front end engine and there's the back end engine. The back end is ancient. When I say ancient, I think I've talked about this in the past. It runs on a locked version of Linux that is no longer supported and no longer even available. We have copies of it, obviously, because that's what we use to keep the game online. But what that means is like compiling versions of the backend, just general support for what we're doing there. Um, it's very, very difficult. It's written in an old version of C++ using an old version of Visual Studio, and not even, I should say, it runs on Linux. So there's a version of it written um, that runs on Linux and then that same code base can be compiled for Windows. So, um, as much as I want to dive in to the front end, and I think I've teased some of the players with Unity screenshots. We did a ton of work on the front end, by the way, in terms of the visuals. You're going to see a little bit of that today, but largely where we're focusing is the backend. So the backend services, it's about 18 different services that all kind of connect and talk. Everything from chat and logging in and trading items and escrow systems and game servers and a whole bunch of other things. And so it's not just one server. It's 18 different servers, or I should say around 18, because some of them are used for development only. They're used for our tools to be able to connect in and modify things. But there's quite a number of runtime services. And the reason we have that is so we can scale individual pieces up. A lot of game servers, um, and we don't need as many login servers or as many of some of the other services. So they're built to scale. That's why we have them all separated like that. And they run on a database that is also ancient in its own right. It's a locked version of that particular database that is just very, very old. I think the bulk of development for Fallen Earth was done in 2008, 2009, kind of around the same time they were developing APB. So So the good news, I guess, and I'll throw it out there is, we've been in development since June. Um, we have, in fact, as of this date, rewritten 100%. I can't say that. We're, I don't know, like 98, 99%. I'll talk about why, but I could see Tim giggling. We're almost there. We've rewritten nearly all of that code. Um, yeah, yeah. And to Red Three Tango's point, it's very difficult to kind of like break the term server out. For Fallen Earth, I like to say service, just because that's the runtime service that handles a specific aspect of the game, and that may run on any number of logical servers or physical servers. We have them distributed and load balanced. So, but that term, if you guys hear me say server, a bunch of times in the same sentence, you'll know why. Um, but, I was gonna in fact, I meant to, before the stream here, open up the code base just to I think there's some analytics because I was curious what, like, the longest code file was that we ported. Some of them are absolutely bonkers. I'm going to go to the one that I think it is, and I'm just going to scroll to the bottom, and it's 35. It's over 35,000 lines of code in one file. Yeah, I can see Tim's expression there. Um, it's bonkers. The code base is so large and so complex. There was a ton to do there. And let's see if I can get maybe I can get some statistics. It'd be interesting, I think, to see what Visual Studio comes back with, just to kind of throw at me in terms of some of the analysis, because it's so huge. Like I can't even guess how many total lines of code there is. Well over 150,000 is my guess. I could be wrong, but it's going to run some analysis here, and then I'll pop back over to that screen when it's done. But one of the reasons, so that's the good news is, we've been busy, actually. So we've had a full team going through the game, um, uh, you know, pouring through just thousands and thousands of lines of code. And you're right, Red Tango. Yep, this one of the aspects of this port, which I'm calling, for those who don't know, porting is where you take something from one language or one system and you move it over to either freshen it up or move it from a code base or platform perspective. And our effort was to go line by line. It was to really keep um, pure compatibility, which meant that at the end of this process, so we have the legacy Linux runtime, which is our production environment. We have a recompile of the legacy code, which is still C++, it's still the original code, but for Windows, which makes it a little bit easier to develop on. So we have that code base as well. And then we wanted this new code base, which is completely freshened up, state of the art, sort of it's been ported over. We wanted bidirectional compatibility, which means I wanted to be able to take one of these new services and stick it in the pool uh, of all the other legacy services and have it plug and play. Have it literally talk as and communicate with those services in a way that no other service would even know it was different. So the communication protocol had to be one to one, and then additionally being able to run all the news services bright and shiny, but take the current client, the current game front end, and run that against it again, complete compatibility, so that we could use that to test, because it's so much code that they're just I don't think we're a big enough team to be able to start making changes right now and keep track of them all and make sure that we actually did it right. So it was more important to me to get a nice clean port over and then start making changes. So there are loads of questions. I'll talk about those in a little bit. There are loads of questions about, hey, is XYZ new feature or XYZ rework coming? And um, not at the immediate time, not right now. We're still working on porting the code, getting it one to one moved over to this sort of new platform, and so that the entire back end is all new. And so that's the good news. We've been busy since June, big full team, churning out. code, just massive amounts of new code there. Um, and I didn't code analysis. Did I get the details I wanted? I didn't. So I'll post. Maybe I'll post on Twitter or I'll follow up or something. But I think uh, those stats I think would blow people away. Frankly, it's so much code to work on. Why is the next question? Like, why did we do it that way? We could have jumped into the front end and maybe started redoing some things there. But I'm sure the existing current players of Classic know this. Um, the servers have to be rebooted multiple times a day. They're that old. There's memory leaks. There's all kinds of stuff. So it just was more important to me to get a nice, fresh, clean set of services that were all brought up to speed. They run faster. They run more optimized. They're more optimized for cloud. They're more optimized for modern day hardware. If we could put that um, together, uh, yes, Fallen Earth on hard mode. You got to get through those raids, man. Get through. Otherwise, we got to reboot those servers. Um, if we could get through that, then I feel like the gameplay experience would just be much better all the way around. If we don't have to reboot them all, multiple times a day, that's horrible. So that was the thought process, was to go update the backend, that would allow us to just keep the servers on all the time. Game would be more stable, and then we would be able to start playing around with the front end and the look and all that stuff. So I know there's loads of comments and complaints or feature requests, things like that we'd like to get to, but just getting a stable system to work off of is it just has to be job number one, unfortunately. But like I said, we're testing that right now. So in the lab, we've got a couple of engineers who are running side by side the new services and the old services. Those all talk to each other. That's the great news. We've got we're a little shy, right? I couldn't quite say 100%. We found out at the end that there were a couple bits and pieces that were not implemented. So the developer who was working on them maybe didn't have the knowledge set, or didn't have enough code yet to be able to get to. There's some fairly complex physics and things. So we found that when we went to go spin some things up, mainly the game server had not implemented. It would get part of the way through things, and then it would have to stop. So we didn't quite finish. We got to go in and tweak that a bit. Um, Alongside the back end code, we also did an entire database rework, because, as I alluded to, it wasn't just this old version of Linux that was running on the back end, but also this crazy old database. And so we upgraded both the database technology, the database schema, and just a bunch of stuff there, which I think is important as well, because part of the problem um, with the backend in general is the database. It grinds to a halt, and I think some of the exploits, some of the things we're fighting with, are based on just really, really poor. I'll say, I don't want to be too judgmental because Icarus did a good job, but just poor database architecture. And I think they were limited, frankly, based on the technology they had at the time, because most of this was developed in 2008, 2009. But being able to do pages of data where you have like a character and all of this crazy denormalized data. Bear in mind, Fallen Earth has no class system. It has free for all skill systems that can be learned and added. And so, from a database structure, it's a database nightmare. Modern day systems, paged or JSON systems, they're amazing, and so it is uh, perfect for some systems that are out there. So we've been working on that. That's actually not as far along. It's not done yet, for good reason, in that we want to be able to run one to one. So the the new platform is hitting the old database just to keep as much consistency, and that's how we can actually have those two services running side by side. Yeah, Lyris. It's true. I think I said the same exact thing on the APB AMA, which is like, oh, pull my hair out, in terms of the APB database as well. And oddly enough, I mean, it is a theme. They were both developed around the same time. So I think they both launched. Fallen Earth is launched slightly sooner than APB. So, but they were both developed in 2008, 2009, that sort of thing. Uh, so that's a pretty good recap. I'm trying to just think like from a development standpoint. Again, I think we'd like to do more of these. I see some good questions here in the chat already. I'll get to those, I promise. What I want to do is kind of get through the game update, tell you guys what we've been working on. But I think, and I've said this twice before because we did the AMA for APB, we did the AMA for SDFU, now we're doing the AMA for Fallen Earth, kind of going project by project. But we're going to try and do more of these, and I think transparency, just being upfront, kind of, hey, here's where we are, is the best policy. Admittedly, I wanted this big splashy reveal of like, hey guys, you didn't know we were doing all this fun stuff. Um, uh, and we didn't do that. Um, let's see here. I'm talking too fast apparently, so I'll slow down a little bit. But um, instead of waiting, I went ahead and just jumped in so we could talk about progress, and then you guys can see it. We'll put it online for you guys. I think are we've got some videos, by the way. So Tim and I are going to run through some things here to just show. And again, I'm gonna put massive disclaimers around this because the unfortunately all the project all the progress has been on the back end. So there's nothing to show there. There's no way I can demonstrate that or show it off. It was just a big, huge, heavy lift. But in order to test some of that, um, we did pull some assets over. You guys have seen some of the work in Unity, um, and so we'll show just a little bit of stuff there. But um, I think what would be fun is why don't we just jump in? I'll keep talking, but let's go ahead and play just the one of the areas that we experimented a lot with is Bone Claw. So we'll see how many fans of Bone Claw we have on the stream today. Um, but we'll go ahead and put that online again. Please let's not judge the art here. That wasn't the purpose of this. This was really to test our systems, and there's a bunch of things happening here. And you'll notice right off the bat, there's some color rendering issues on the outfit, and so the character's actually not even the outfit's not rendering correctly. But what you will see here is a chunk of bone claw that we were working on from a terrain perspective, from a from an ecosystem perspective. So, and I'll point out a couple things. We've got a couple different videos of what that looks like. Um, so, kind of, coming out of one of the bunkers. We're testing some of the areas, going from Bone Claw to the outskirts of Bone Claw, and having the game recognize when you're in different zones. That's sort of thing. So there's a bit of work kind of going on there in the video. Um, I think we have an ecosystem demo that we can show too, because what you'll notice is some of the foliage there is popping up, and so we're testing ecosystems in the game and how to get those to show up properly. And again, I want to qualify what you guys are seeing is not a visual representation of the game. Like, it's just not. And so I appreciate the kudos. We did, for those tests, we did import all of the proprietary game assets. So clothing and characters, and obviously buildings and things like that. Um, so what we're showing here is just the ecosystem changes as you go from one ecosystem to another, and making sure that the server is throwing that information up. So again, we're not judging visuals. It is absolutely not Unreal. The game has virtually no lighting. It's like one little sunlight on it and some shadow, so it's not doing a whole lot here. But it's Unity is what we're using right now for the front end. That's where all the assets are. And if I get a little brave, I will. Um, I'll show. Yeah, so this is actually a great example of us just switching ecosystems around, or seasons. So you can see some of the seasonal stuff that happens where assets swap over. Um, Yeah, it is interesting. I'm going to take a break. We're going to just play this and loop it. You guys can see some of the stuff there, but Um, yeah, there obviously there's a game. I'm not going to name it. There's a game in the news right now that was billed as an open MMO, and I think I certainly love these kinds of games. I've been very clear about that, and I kind of wear it on my sleeve. There aren't enough of them. I feel like they're kind of a dying breed right now, and I think people are a little starved for them. Frankly, we've all had. Um, a lot of contained environments, right? And they're fun, or arenas, those are fun too, but there really aren't a lot of open world games left. There are some big ones, obviously, but um, uh, anyway, so I agree. I think we saw a lot in the news about a developer promoting an open world game, an open MMO game that didn't happen, unfortunately. Um, and they are massive. They take a lot of money. They take a lot of development. They're just really really tough. Um, and so I agree, Frosty. They're tough to get right. And so my feeling has always been that there are some just amazing bones. Um, uh, with Fallen Earth, and that's we're going through the process, all of the archaeology and excavation of fixing those bones and uh, and going through those. Um, we'll go ahead and do the login test, just because it's one of the few examples of us actually logging into the game and testing some of the server functionality. And so let's see if Tim has that video. We'll show the login test again. This is just it's bare bones stuff um, of us just kind of gluing up access to the server, loading, getting into the game. We're bone claw, kind of coming out there. So um, super basic type stuff there. Um, uh, all right, so we'll pause there again, just to sort of recap, right? So we've been working on this since June. We're about 6 months in. We have 90, I'm going to call it 99% of the back end rewritten. It's a massive job. I'd say we're about 50% on the database side of things, migrating that over. We've got a new database engine that we're cutting over to. And the next steps are, and why, right? Why was just, we just can't keep the current environment on for very long, 12 hours, 18 hours max, and then the servers start to degrade. And then, um, uh, we have to reboot them, and then it disrupts things. It's just not a fun experience. So our my commitment was that we would put classic back online. You guys could have a fun time in that little sandbox, um, but as soon as possible I want to get uh, uh, us, I want to get us onto something that is stable. So that's why we chose rewriting the backend first. um, I'll answer. This is one that just came up in chat. I'm trying to keep my eye on it and talk at the same time. Unity versus Unreal versus proprietary. So let's talk about that real quick. Um, every one of our other games is in Unreal, so I'll throw that out there. Everything from APB to SDFU and some of the other titles we have in development, they're all Unreal. Personally, I feel like Unreal is very bulky when it comes to MMOs. The only other real MMO out there is the DCUO MMO. It's the DC Comics MMO. They did it on Unreal, and I actually know people who were on that team, the original team that did it. And I feel like they rewrote just core pieces of the engine to get it to work for an MMO. And again, it's just a big, bulky engine. I love Unreal. Obviously, we use it all the time. But adapting Unreal to what Unreal does very well is shooters, hands down, just shooters, even multiplayer shooters. But there have been a ton of papers and a ton of talk about where Unreal caps out. Unreal caps out at 100 people. So getting more than 100 people on a district together, it just doesn't work very well. There's just too much network traffic, too much chatter, and you need a proprietary backend. So we chose, and it was a toss up, but we chose Unity at the time. Unity was royalty free. Obviously, they've um, started to make some changes, walk those back, that sort of thing. But we're staying on a version that will be royalty free, and it's just the idea is to keep it lighter weight. Weirdly, I think Unity is a little bit more well suited to MMOs. Most MMOs are proprietary, but I think Unity tends to lean into what you need to get done for MMOs as opposed to Unreal. So that's my engine spiel. Um, I feel like both engines have made big strides, and again, I see some comments there. Um, what we showed graphically is not in any way, shape, or form representative of the graphical target we want to hit. So, one, I want to say, there's been absolutely no deep effort to embrace PBR there, or some of the um, more modern day rendering techniques. Remember, we're pulling in like assets from a game that is 13 years old, so the textures that exist for those assets are 13 years old as well, and so they don't work with PBR and other things as well. We've cheated. We did some things to kind of get them to render okay, but again, they would need to be remastered. There'd be a whole nother effort there before we get into the front end. So again, the stuff we're showing, I couldn't very well come on stream and say, "Hey, we've done all this work on the back end," and not show some video, because I think you guys probably would be pretty frustrated by that. Um, but you'll also know there's no HUDs or UIs. There's really no gameplay. I mean, what you see there running around is as bare bones as we can possibly get, and it's really just for test purposes. It's not meant to be the game. Not yet. We're just not at that stage yet. So I want to kind of put that umbrella around things you're seeing there. I do want to show a couple more things. I'm gonna have to think about what I want to show. I'm always worried about showing things that could um, lead to exploits or giving away too much information at this point. Let's show some more of the technical day night and weather and some of that stuff. I think we have a video showing some tests from the day night system, and going from one weather biome into another weather biome. Here you kind of see it where the sky populates with clouds, and then I think it starts snowing here in a little bit, and you can see some of the weather game cycle stuff. Day night cycle stuff happening there, where the time of day is changing. So again, just more testing, kind of what is um, happening there. So again, Aurora Craft, there's no UI. We're not on that part of the project yet. That's a what I would call front end. So again, back end is where we're 100% of our focus is all on the back end. Occasionally, what happens is when you're working on back end services, you need to plug and play with tools. So that's where we did get involved in Unity, and we rebuilt all of the level editing tools, all of there's just a ton of functionality there that they used to populate the world, right? So they would put buildings and weather systems in, and objects in, and spawn points, and that sort of thing. So even as we are just working on the back end, we still had to think about, okay, what does the content mastering process look like? And so we did spend a lot of time in Unity looking at like I said, the ecosystems and the weather patterns, anything that shares data between the front end and the back end, um, namely like object placement and physics. We had to make sure we were doing stuff in a way that we could continue at in the future, creating new content. Which is the number one goal here at some point. Again, you're not going to see any aim modes or UIs or anything like that. Um, and I would agree. I mean, I think I see a comment here in chat. The philosophy that was used before was they sort of took a slice of the Grand Canyon. They actually used a topology map of the Grand Canyon, and then populated that. But they always had kind of this sector of space, the four of them, to be honest, that I feel like they started with the terrain and then populated, as opposed to the other way around, where they maybe could have decided how much content do we want to have. Let's design an area for that much content. And so it does feel a little bit open. I think there were plans for having systems that would spawn up to fill in a little bit of the open space. I know there's some stuff that we've looked at on our end to do that, and I think I think that could be really cool, and there lots of space to play in. Um, but you're right. I mean, I think there's quite a bit of work to be looked at in terms of the map and how populated it is, and what each town looks like, and how that's going on. Um, uh, so let's see. So I'm going to acknowledge just a couple other things in chat here. The first thing, the plan is to completely port the game for release. Yes, that is the plan. And so, fortunately, what we can do there, our next step is to take these new backend services that are plugged into the existing database and launch them. We want to put a PTS version of sort of public test server version of those services online, so that people can, they'll have an option. You can go play classic. That's great. That's the current game. Um, or you can help us beta test the new backend services so we can fix the what are sure to be plethora of bugs and things that need to be addressed there. Do some scale testing and some things like that. So I think that is going to be our next major goal, is to put the backend services, the new brand new backend services online, and put a test server online so that people can come and test and see and log in. And you'll be able to use there'll be just a different, basically the same client. Um, New backend with old game. Yep, that's exactly it. So all new backend. Although I'll put the caveat, it's going to go in stages. Brand new backend, and then but existing database. So the idea is that you'll be able to play your classic characters on a different set of servers. We're not going to ask you to make new characters. So the new backend will be running off that same database, so you guys can kind of switch back and forth just to kind of test things for us. We may take those servers up and down a little bit, to kind of make sure people are focused. We'll say, hey, we're putting it online for a couple hours, but yeah, job number one, rewrite the servers to make them more stable. And I see Spookly there mentioning, if 100 people stand in the same spot, it crashes, and yeah, we want to stabilize things. To me to share. So we had pure compatibility. Um, will we end up? Sorry, I'm gonna. Will we end up with the new game and no backend items? So let's crack this open. I'll go back to my questions. Um, because a bunch of people asked the same question. I want to, so I want to just backtrack a little bit. So Fix on Discord had asked about seasons. Um, I think that's a double-sided question. Physical seasons in terms of what we showed, just the weather changing in the game, but also I think modern day MMOs have started this idea of battle passes or seasons. I don't know how interested I am in battle pass. It's not really what I'm looking to do um, with Fallen Earth. But I think we're looking to have storyline seasons where we emphasize changes as they go. So I want to dive into that topic because I know a couple people have asked about the storyline. Is it done? Where are we going to do? What are we going to do things there? I think my plan there is to make a full pass through the storyline. There are aspects of the storyline I really like. I think the game suffers from multiple writers where they wrote different quest lines or they wrote different things, and sometimes they feel a little disjointed. And so, what I want to try to do is create one big pass through all the content and analyze it all, make sure, and then release that. So as we're putting this all back online, and we want you guys um, to get in there, it really deserves a quest overhaul, sort of a storyline overhaul, to kind of go back through and make sure um, we're being a little more modern about it. Yeah, so I think the question more was about seasons with respect to new storylines, and that is absolutely the goal: is be able to release content on a regular cadence, and then people could kind of play that and basically there would be constant new storylines, items, quests, that would all kind of come out all at the same time. Kind of uh, plenty of other popular MMOs do that. I thought it was a good question, so I wanted to address that. There's a lot to go through. I mean, this game, it's a big game, so uh, I want to acknowledge we're doing our best to kind of get through it. I am very excited by the progress. I wanted a little more for today to be able to show. I've still got a couple more things we'll show, but I figured it was more important to start having the AMAs more often, and maybe not base them on, hey, we reached this milestone. And but I'm excited. I mean, like right now, earlier today, I had all the services up and running in our development environment, all of them. I did mention the game server itself has some unimplemented features, so that one we're actually exciting to see it communicate and all those servers be online. So it's actually really cool. Um, uh, Thank you guys. I appreciate the nice words. There's secrets. Um, Yeah, I mean, I think the nice thing right now is um, we're at a good point. We've done a ton of work, and the next step is to put something in front of you guys. So we're going to do a round of QA. Like I said, there will be hordes of bugs and stuff. We want to knock those out. Anything low hanging, we just want to get rid of that. But then um, uh, we won't put this up on a public test server for you guys to be able to jump in and start kind of playing side by side with. Let's just run this one.
Matt, we're kind of losing you a little bit.
Always, the reason we started from scratch was it's us doing something for the community because we know you guys like the game, but it was meant to be more sandboxy. So we've kept it online. There are some bugs. We know about some bugs. There's still some duping issues. There's still issues. So the goal, I think, is still not to move forward with the classic characters. They're there to have fun with them. We hope you guys have fun. But we want to move forward cleanly. And so, yep, too much talking. I meant to switch. I'm going to switch connections. Bear with me.
Should give him a second to switch over. I'm gonna pick one of these videos while Matt's not here to tell me not to. Let's see. Ooh, here's a fly through one. Let's do this one. This one might make you guys dizzy. I'm used to flying around this fast. For our ships that fight underground game. Yeah, I haven't played the original. I played the original game a long time ago, and from what I recall, the shadows didn't look this good. Share secrets. But I'm surprised how well your view distance holds up in this game. Is impressive. What else do I got? What else should I not share? Should record video.
All right.
Ah, he's back. Oh, hide the stuff.
That.
Hide everything.
Man. The cat's away, the mice will play. I see how it goes. No, that's a fun kind of fly through thing. Let me know, by the way, I switched to internet connections to something maybe a little more stable, not as fast, but more stable. So I happen to be in Europe right now. I'm told that Europe is having some ISP issues and things like that. So bear with me. Just let me know in chat if I start to cut out again. We'll see if we can um, address that. Um, we all right. So I wanted to kind of address the classic issue. Just that classic is there. It's the original server. We're not going to try to carry forward those. Maybe at some future date. And I've said this before. We've got the original database of the game backed up. So all the original items, all the original characters, that's all there. We've got classic. That's also obviously we're running that. That's live. Um, I have not decided whether I want to carry those characters and their equipment forward at some future date because there needs to be some vetting there. There's a lot of issues with duplicates and things like that we would need to sort through first. So I want to be as upfront as I can about the characters and our ability to migrate them over. We're going to be doing some very shortly here. We're going to be doing some database work to migrate all that stuff over to the new database. Um, but for right now, the answer is I don't know whether we're going to carry those forward. I know one of the questions specifically was, are we going to be able to get the old characters back from the original game? And if so, could they elect to take their character from classic instead? And so it's just the jury's out. I want to acknowledge the question; it was a good question, but I don't have an answer. So let's talk about the other question that came up a lot. And again, I appreciate everybody who asked questions. I'm going to flip over and see who asked this one. So like Reborn, um, are there options to use AI to port the code over? We didn't do that. We hand ported it. We started back in June. There may be, but I obviously Reborn didn't know that we were going to come onto the stream and say, guess what? We've rewritten 99% um, of the code. But yeah, it was a good as well. There's a lot of people that asked about the money, the store, and so again, I want to go back to some of the thought process behind Classic, knowing that potentially we might not be able to keep those characters, and potentially just I didn't I'm not quite sure right about the investment there. Um, was very reticent to turn the store on because from my perspective, I never want players spending money on something where they might lose their investment or they might not. I don't want anybody to be unhappy there. I think alternatively, what's been asked is, hey, can you open the store just for donations? Is there a way we can support Little Orbit? We like what you guys do. And again, obviously, nobody knew we were in the background porting this whole thing. So it's definitely something I think I feel a little more comfortable with at this time. I think we have again maybe when we go to put the new version online in terms of the public test server, where I feel at that point maybe it's like, hey, here's Little Orbit showing you guys, not talking, but showing you guys a little more of the investment we're putting into the game and what we're doing. Um, then maybe I will, maybe I'll put the store back online. Um, so there are some questions in chat. How can the community help? Um, there were some other questions about putting the marketplace back online. I'll let you know. It's something I'm mulling over right now. It's come up a lot, and I know our community support has said, "Hey, people are asking about this." And so it's something I'm getting closer to. So if I feel like the public test goes well, and I feel like, hey, all right, cool, we're definitely in a position to kind of put the throttle down on this and hit the next couple um, stages with this, then I may put the store back online. I may just, I'm trying to decide whether we just want to open it up for donations or whether we want to just put the store online. I feel like getting some gameplay value is always better than just a pure donation thing. But again, I don't want people to just stumble in there and make purchases and then not understand why we put it back online. So thank you. There are a couple of questions. I'll just read through a couple. One, someone asked about, is it possible to put the game on PlayStation 4 or 5? The current game, absolutely not. It is a uh, proprietary game engine, so it's not developed. The current front end, the one you guys are playing for Classic, is it's not Unreal. It's not Unity. It's nothing that kind of has public support. It's 100% proprietary. So that one, the answer is no. The good news is we've got an engine picked out that we've already migrated a bunch of stuff over into Unity, and that does run on PlayStation 4 or 5, and frankly, we could put it on um, any uh, any platform we want that we feel is worth it. And I definitely think having some additional support for the game, um, even so much as just uh, Mac or Linux, other PC operating systems would be fun to just support, and you get those pretty easily with Unity. So that's a good question. Um, all right, keep working. Thank you guys. I'm just scrolling back. I want to make sure we didn't skip anybody here. Concept of getting new content is great. It's absolutely the goal. Uh, yeah, so I think as I already said, so the next step is final testing with the services. Put those uh, back online. Put those online so you guys can start playing with them. We got to finish some database work. That's step two, is get all the database cut over, which would be fun because then that's half the problem. And then number three is to get into uh, the actual front end. And so there's quite a bit of work involved there, but I really feel like having done the basics and kind of this is our, it's a chance for people to learn the back end and see how it goes. It will help inform the front end. Um, so we're about so research just joined us. We're about 50 minutes into the AMA, so there's lots there. I'm sure we're gonna put this. I think, correct me if I'm right, Tim. We're gonna put this. Did we do it right? We'll put this up on Twitch. So you guys can watch it later. We'll post it afterwards to YouTube. So again, thanks for everybody for joining. Um, I really want to show one of these editor videos. They're risky, but um, let's just show some quick clips. We're not going to play all of them because some of them are quite long, but I'm thinking we've got some world editor videos. Let's just clip through those pretty quickly. Maybe world editor one. We'll show some of these. This is just us in Unity. I talked about Unity and rebuilding some of the tools, but here's our world editor, and you can see a little bit of the back end tools and us playing with objects. Again, it's very hard to show stuff when it's entirely end. So I wanted to be thoughtful and try and figure out a way to do that. Um, there's a portion here you can maybe even fast forward here a little bit, but I was taking the video and it we were trying to demonstrate just how many objects are in some of these scenes by showing the names. And so there it is. Yeah, like you can just see all the names of all the objects. Come on. Um, and so yeah, so this is our integration. I'll actually show you some of the backend integration briefly. I don't want to go too far into it. Let's go to World Editor 2 because this is where we started. That I think that video is maybe 4 months 4 months old, but we use this to edit and place objects, and then it saves back out to um, the server, and so there's just quite a bit going on here. But drawing paths for placing, path patrol elements or zones or roads or all kinds of stuff. So having general path editing and being able to manipulate the world is obviously key feature. Let's drag it forward. Let's just jump to some of the other parts of this. But yeah, placing objects and then serializing that back to the servers. Again, we had to replace. This was a bespoke editor that they wrote, a custom editor that they wrote for their level designers, and so. As an engine, I mean, we've gone through all those custom tools and completely ported them into Unity because we needed to keep things consistent in how they work together. But you can see them, setting up some of the pieces. Let's jump to the next one. There's another one. So this tool we've been iterating on the entire project, but a lot of what we end up doing for these is jumping through items. to place them. And so, we imported just tons of items from the game into these tools to be able to, again, design new content, new areas, new quests, new zones. And so here you're seeing some of that, just the list of stuff that's been imported and placed, and how that gets saved. I think the last one, if you go to 4, um, the last one actually shows the syncing between the server and checking things out and actually logging in and doing some of the things there. So we can fast forward a little bit, but that sort of saving to the back end. It's when someone mentioned RPG Maker. I mean, you're not entirely wrong. You need the ability for your designers to be able to go in and create content. Um, so um, that's probably pretty good. So we'll take that one off. I think I was probably, let me try to think if there's some other ones. We've got some, I think there's an ecosystem editor too, that we could probably show that
Do
one,
you want to
just kind
do?
of designing some of the,
Do you want to do one or two? We got two of them here.
let's do two. We'll
Okay.
jump into two. They're these really kind of show the iterations of the game and the tools. And so here you're seeing, um, this is designing out the foliage, and the ecosystems are, each region of the map has a different feel to it. The foliage, the weather, the various kind of elements that stream in alongside the placed objects. So there's a bunch of stuff that's anchored to the ground, but then there's stuff that we do with the ecosystem editor that fills in and populates that whole area there. And so this is our rewritten from scratch. This is the new ecosystem editor that does the same thing as the original ecosystem editor, and uh, uh, you know does that. We've also integrated newer Unity systems like Gaia and a bunch of other newer systems that are way better at handling terrain and that sort of thing. So so you guys can see that. So there you go. So this is some of the ecosystem editing they go through. I think the video goes on to pick prefabs and attach it to trees, and they kind of it has a distance at which it streams this stuff in. It's pretty cool. I'm having rewritten some of these tools. It's nice to see the game systems come together. Um, why don't you go ahead and we'll talk a little. I'm going to talk about anti cheat next, but while we're doing that, we had a request to show the Bone Claw video just at random. If you want to pick some of the Bone Claw videos, the game. I want to say again for those just joining, um, this is not representative of the look and feel. These are not sort of vertical slices. All these are was this we made these videos as part of our testing. So we're working on the back end. Obviously, we imported a bunch of assets, every asset actually from the game into Unity. And the plan is, we'll get to this sort of thing, but we chose to take a couple videos to go ahead and share. And I like the one. I actually like the one of where you run around here, because it actually shows a little bit of the zoning. It actually shows the awareness of some of the game data. It's not just us just taking a video of running around something in Unity. It is actually getting a little bit more of the data of what's happening in the zone. But you can kind of see a little bit for people who are familiar with Bone Claw, the recreation of Bone Claw. This is absolutely zero art pass. So the ground is not going to look like that. That is like one tiled texture. I mentioned earlier when we imported everything that none of the objects are set up for PBR, which is physics-based rendering. That's the most common form today, most modern form of rendering. What you will see is these do have collisions on them, so you can get up on that platform and walk on them. So we've imported everything, and so yeah, you can. I mean, it's real, it's there, but it is not representative of the final look. These were just taken to kind of demonstrate internally. We were trying to make sure things are loading correctly and coming in correctly there. So anti cheat. I know that's come up in the chat. Absolutely, there is a plan to integrate anti cheat. It's not something we can do with the current engine, but it is something we can do with the new one. So so we can definitely put in some anti cheat and make sure that's been a problem in the past. Actually, anytime you have PvP as part of it, a system in the game, you got to have a really good anti cheat. Tim's jumping around having fun
Hey,
here.
yeah, I
Did
was
you
looking
notice the
at the
particle system?
smoke. Yeah, that smoke looks really good.
This is the old school particle system. Just brought this in.
Yeah, it looks good though.
I noticed it in the playthrough too, and I was like, oh yeah, that's cool. They brought it in. Um, so yes, the simple answer is yes. We want to do a full blown anti-cheat integration. We're not there yet. In that we're still just working on backend stuff, but yeah, yeah. I know Secrets has spent quite a bit of time looking at anti-cheat for APV, so he's in that mode. Um, yeah, some of these some of the particle effects obviously we will redo because they're a little dated now, but it is fun to kind of just see them. What I'm most like there's a lot of stuff happening in this video, like the foliage loading in on the fly. That's all part of the ecosystem, which is really cool. The physics, being able to walk around on actual objects or being occluded when you hit an object, that's actually pretty cool. But I think what I'm looking forward to the most is the terrain rendering, because we can do that so much better today than we could 13 years ago. We've got height map and splat maps, and just there's a whole bunch of technology that we have yet to deploy here for making the terrain really just look and feel amazing. Lighting in general, just there's just a bunch of new lighting systems that are not um, deployed here. And just so we're clear, this is a video. Nobody's playing the game for real. It's just some video capture, so we can't interact with it. Um, all right. So other questions. We're about an hour in. I want to make sure I get to some questions. So I'm just going to kind of skim back the top. Imran was the one that had asked